Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome here to the launch pad and our live launch coverage of the test flight from the Vostochny Cosmodrome of Angara A5 with Roscosmos. If it's your first time here, welcome. My name's Zach. I'm the founder and host here at the launch pad, and here at TLP, it's our mission to inform and inspire the explorers of tomorrow because we believe that space is better together, and you are looking at a live view from the Roscosmos Vostochny Cosmodrome at Site 1A, where they are attempting the first ever test launch of an Angara A5 from this cosmodrome. Today's mission will not carry any payloads on board, but it will carry an upper stage called Orion, which is very similar to a Persei stage. Today's launch will be testing a launch into geostationary Earth orbit. This is the fourth flight of the Angara A5, but as I said, it's the first from the Vostochny Cosmodrome and the first of 2024. As always, if you guys have questions, you can send those in the chat by tagging us at the Launchpad. We'll work on answering those live. Got people tuning in all over the world. We got Jay Marsh in Toronto. We got Zijada, sorry if I'm saying that wrong, in Czech. We got Mike in Columbus. Angela is in New Zealand. Ian's in bed recovering from the solar eclipse. We got Ken in Mississippi. We've got Bruce in Wyoming. Reverse is in South Korea. David's also in New Zealand. I see 41 South in Tasmania, Australia. Frode is in Norway. And we got Heister in the UK and Monty in India. It's great to have you all joining us here. As I said, if you guys have questions, you can send those in the chat by tagging us at the Launchpad, and we'll work on answering those live. We're at T-minus 58 minutes, 15 seconds, and counting. And we will listen in to Roscosmos Mission Control for updates throughout today's countdown as they continue to count down to this test flight here today. We also are counting down to the final flight of Delta IV Heavy, set to launch in a few hours from the Space Coast. And once we wrap up this live coverage of the test flight, we will resume our countdown to launch coverage for that Delta IV Heavy. We've had confirmation from some of our rocket chasers that were out in the field for the solar eclipse yesterday. They've landed back on the Space Coast and are heading out to the Space Coast in preparation for that final flight of Delta IV Heavy a little bit later today. Fats Bacon, is it going to start soon? We got 57 minutes, 30 seconds, and counting till launch. Florian says, great intro. Thanks so much. I appreciate that. We got Norman tuning in from South Texas, just outside San Antonio. We got John is in Merseyside, England. Great to have you here. Lots of people just tuning in. If you haven't yet, take a moment, engage that like button, share out the stream, invite people to join us as we continue to count down to launch. Michael says, no payload on the fourth launch. To be short, what the balls. It's a test flight, so they're launching. It's a new pad that they are launching from. Not surprising that they've decided to be a little safer with it and not put a payload on board. Some launch providers decide to risk it if they feel like they know the vehicle. Others decide to launch one and see if it works first. The view that you're seeing on your screen is of Site 1 at the Vostochny Cosmodrome. Today's vehicle is a 3-stage vehicle standing 55.4 meters tall. It has 4 strap-on boosters on the side. The fairing that you can see just peeking out over the trees there is 15.2 meters tall with a diameter of 4.35 meters. This vehicle costs about $100 million per flight and can carry up to 23,000 kilograms to low Earth orbit or 5,400 kilograms to transfer orbit. Today it's going into a geostationary orbit. As I said, this is the 4th launch for the Angara A5. It previously launched from Site 35/1 at the Vostochny Cosmodrome, also in Russia. Its previous flights occurred back all the way in 2014. We had the Angara A5 that launched on its first flight, which was a successful flight. That was the first ever proof of an orbital launcher. On board, it was a mass model of a Russian geostationary satellite that was put into orbit that would burn up a few hours after launch, but that was a successful flight, but again, a demo. Then there was a long break, 6 years, all the way to December 14th, 2020. That was when the second flight of Angara A5 lifted off from the Vostochny Cosmodrome. That one was the, as I said, first flight since 2014, and it was a vehicle evaluation payload, again carrying a mass model of a Russian geostationary satellite, or at least that's what they were telling us. And then we had another jump of about a year to December 27th, 2021 was the last flight of the Angara, and this was the last flight from Site 35/1. Unfortunately, this flight was a launch failure. It was the first flight of the upper stage, and it was the last of 3 demonstration flights that were planned. The upper stage failed to restart for a second burn, leaving the upper stage and payload in low Earth orbit, with its target having been geostationary orbit. On board was also a mass model of a geostationary satellite, but due to that launch failure, it was not deployed into its targeted orbit. So that is what leads us to here today. The third or fourth demo flight of the Angara A5, the second demo flight of that upper stage, and the first flight from an all new launch site. So lots of milestones hopefully being achieved here today. We are at T minus 53 minutes, 50 seconds and counting. It looks like a good weather day down at the Vostochny Cosmodrome in preparation for today's flight. Like we see with many of the launches, we do see vehicles head out to the pad and people around the pad all the way up to those final 20-25 minutes or so of liftoff. So not abnormal at this point to be seeing some vehicles going to and from the pad. As it's a new launch site, we'll see what other camera views Roscosmos provides. This is a launch from Russia, so we are grateful for seeing anything. They are normally a bit more restrictive in the coverage that they give if it is not a crew mission or something to do with the International Space Station. So excited that we're able to bring this live to you today. As always, if you guys have questions, you can send those in the chat by tagging us at the launch pad, and we will work on answering those live. And if you haven't yet, take a moment, also head on over to the Launchpad shop. You can pick up your limited edition solar eclipse merch to celebrate yesterday, and that limited edition Delta 4 heavy gear to commemorate, hopefully, what we're going to see as a final flight of Delta 4 Heavy. Well, not hopefully. We'd all love to see more of them, but hopefully the final successful flight, since that is the plan, that this is the final flight. Lots of people just tuning in. We got South Hollywood at Newport Beach. We got Richie is in Fort Lauderdale. Great to see you. Thanks for jumping on. We've got Columbus. We got Toronto. I see Peter's in Ireland. Great to have you joining us here this morning. If you haven't yet, also consider joining us over on the TLP Discord. That's where our community hangs out in between streams, and we'd love to invite you to join us there. T minus 52 minutes and counting. We are going to turn up the live audio coming in from the clean feed here. A rare occasion that Russia is actually providing also a technical feed for the world to be able to cover today's flight.
Закончена заправка ракетоносителем компонентами ракетного топлива. Есть готовность к отводу фирмы удержания. Второй.
Доклад второго принял первый.
And if you're just joining us, welcome here to the launch pad. You are looking at a live view from the Vostochny Cosmodrome, where Roscosmos is preparing to launch the first Angara A5 rocket from Site 1A from the Vostochny Cosmodrome. This will be the fourth flight of the Angara A5 vehicle, the first flight following a flight anomaly that occurred back a couple of years ago in 2021 during his last flight test. That was the third flight test, the third flight, but the first failure, as the first two flights were successful. All previous flights have carried onboard mass simulators, and that is happening again today. This is, as we said, the first flight from this launch site, so the mission will not carry any payloads, but it is carrying the upper stage called Orion, which is very similar to the stage that failed during the last flight. T minus 35 minutes, 30 seconds and counting. The vehicle stands 55.4 meters tall on the pad, and you can see that launch structure now beginning to retract away and open up, revealing the rest of the vehicle as Roscosmos continues to run through the final part of the count, heading into terminal count. This vehicle can carry up to 23,000 kilograms to low Earth orbit or 5,400 kilograms to geotransfer orbit. As always, if you guys have questions, you can send those in the chat by tagging us at the launch pad, and we'll work on answering those live as we continue through the count. We are listening in to the live sights and sounds from Roscosmos mission control through the clean feed rather than their commentary feed as we continue to count down to the fourth test flight of Angara A5. Stay with us.
Готовность к пуску 30 минут, первый.
Готовность к пуску 30 минут. Принял. Пятый.
Готовность к пуску 30 минут. Принял. Второй.
Готовность 30 минут принята. Девятый.
Принята готовность к пуску 30 минут, первый. Начаты припусковые операции. Первый.
Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome here to the launch pad. And you are looking at a live view of Site 1A at the Vostochny Cosmodrome, where Roscosmos, with Russia, is preparing to launch the fourth test flight of the Angara A5 vehicle, the first flight from the Vostochny Cosmodrome. If it's your first time here, welcome. My name's Zach. I'm the founder and host here at the launch pad, and here at TLP, it's our mission to inform and inspire the explorers of tomorrow, because we believe that space is better together. We're at T minus 9 minutes, 35 seconds, and counting till launch. If you haven't yet, take a moment, let us know in the chat where you're watching from, and at the same time, engage that like button. Let's see if we can get up to that 500 like mark before liftoff. As I said, you are looking at a live view of Site 1A at the Vostochny Cosmodrome, where the 55.4 meter tall Angara A5 vehicle is standing tall, fueled up, ready for today's flight. This is a 3-stage heavy lift launch vehicle with 4 strap-on boosters. The fairing that you can see peeking out there stands 15.2 meters tall with a diameter of 4.35 meters. This vehicle can carry up to 23,000 kilograms to low Earth orbit or 5,400 kilograms to GTO orbit. The average cost of a launch is $100 million, and this vehicle has had quite the life of it, including only having flown, hopefully, here on its 4th ever mission. The first ever flight of the Angara A5 was all the way back on December 23rd, 2014, where it launched on its maiden flight. We then had a 6-year gap until Angara A5 lifted off for its second flight on December 14th, 2020, and then just about a year later, on December 27th, 2021, it took off on its third flight. All 3 of those flights launched from Site 35/1 at the Vostochny Cosmodrome in Russia. The first 2 flights were successful. The third flight, unfortunately, did see a failure during it. It was the third flight consisted of the first ever flight of the Persei upper stage. It was supposed to be the last of 3 demo flights planned, but due to the upper stage failing to restart for its second burn, it deployed its upper stage and payload into a low Earth orbit rather than a geostationary Earth orbit. So here we are today, out now at the Vostochny Cosmodrome for a 4th test flight. On board today, again, no payload, but there is a simulated payload of the upper stage, which is now carrying Orion. So no payloads on board, just the upper stage, but Orion is a next generation version of Persei, and hopefully this upper stage will work for them today, but no payloads actually on board here today. Today's targeted orbit is geostationary Earth orbit as well. At liftoff, the vehicle will have 9,610 kilonewtons of thrust during its flight, and we'll be listening in to the live mission control audio from Roscosmos as we continue through the flight. Lots of people just tuning in. Great to have so many people here. We got Jacob from New Brunswick in Canada. Just Yash is in India. We've got Terry in Australia. We've got Moscow. I see R Clamps Australia as well. Lunar's in Las Vegas, Nevada. We got Frank in Manchester, UK. We got C&D Boy in BC. We've got Paparazzi in Athens. Wilbo is in Cornwall, or Wilbo is in Cornwall. Great to see you all joining us here. Take a moment, let us know in the chat where you're watching from. Share out the stream and invite people to join us, as we are now 6 minutes, 24 seconds and counting till the 4th test flight of the Angara A5 vehicle. As it is a test flight, we're not completely sure what type of coverage to expect from Roscosmos, but we will be listening in and watching live as it all happens. We also, of course, are counting down to the sad final flight of Delta IV Heavy later today. That flight, we will be bringing you full live commentary coverage for T-minus 7 hours, 58 minutes, 18 seconds and counting till that flight. Immediately following the completion of the Angara A5 flight test coverage, we will pick up our countdown to launch coverage of Delta IV Heavy as they begin fueling operations in the next few hours. If you guys have questions, you can send those in the chat by taking us at the launch pad, and we'll work on answering those live as we continue through the final minutes of the count. T-minus 5 minutes, 30 seconds and counting. We also want to hear from you in the poll in the YouTube chat. How do you think this flight's going to go? Are we going to see a total success, total failure, failure of the upper stage again, or a failure of the core stage? Of course, we believe that space is better together, and we want all launch vehicles to have successful flights, and this vehicle has had a decade leading up to this point. 4 test flights in a decade. We'd love to see it be brought online and become operational. T-minus 5 minutes and counting till launch. You are looking at a live view of Site 1A at the Vostochny Cosmodrome in Russia. Looks like a good clear day for a flight.
Закончена заправка окислителем. 5-й.
T-minus 4 minutes and counting till the fourth test flight of the Angara A5 heavy lift launch vehicle from Roscosmos. As always, here at the Launchpad, we want to see that go, no go from you guys in the chat. If you aren't a TLP member just yet, consider hitting that join button. Just 99 cents a month gets you access to those custom TLP launch emotes and our TLP helmet next to your green name in the chat. All that goes back into expanding our coverage to bring you even better coverage of everything from around the world. I'm currently operating from our remote studio, currently stationed in the UK, but we've got plans. We will be running all over the planet this year and next year, covering some of the biggest events in spaceflight, and we hope that you will join us along the way and help support us in doing so. T-minus 3 minutes, 15 seconds, and counting, looking at a wider shot there of the launch site. The launch tower retracted fully away from the vehicle in preparation for today's flight. T-minus 3 minutes and counting.
Выдана команда «Отбой пуска». Руководителям работ подготовиться к стоянке 24 часа. Первый.
Есть подготовиться к стоянке 24 часа. Пятый.
And it does appear that we have had a scrub for today. That right there, that final minute of the count. Unfortunately, a scrub for the flight. We haven't heard much more on what that caused. Sorry, we were translating some of that there to make sure. It sounds like they are going to try again in 24 hours. So we will be back here then. But unfortunately, we have had a scrub of the fourth flight test of the Angara A5 launch vehicle. We hope you'll join us back here again tomorrow for another launch attempt, and hopefully we'll have some updates for you on what caused today's scrub. Now, what we're going to do is we are going to wrap up our Angara A5 flight test coverage, but we are going to send you all on over and kick off our countdown to launch for the final flight of Delta IV Heavy right away. So we'll head on over to that stream as we begin live commentary updates as we count down to launch of that flight. T-minus 7 hours, 52 minutes, 20 seconds, and counting. If you haven't yet, take a moment, engage that subscribe button so you never miss another live launch coverage, docking, undocking, or return to Earth, but from our TLP remote studio currently in the UK. My name's Zach, and we'll see you later today for the final flight of Delta IV Heavy, because space is better together. Good day.